This is Tom Fox. Welcome to the February edition of The Compliance Life. This month I am featuring another director of trade compliance who now has her own consulting firm, Ellen Smith. I've known Ellen for quite some time. We were both in the Houston compliance community, and Ellen once again has a fascinating journey to and from the director's chair for trade compliance. She has a lot of experience in law firm work and other areas I think you will find fascinating on this journey in the compliance life. In episode 3, Ellen moves to the trade director's chair.
The Compliance Life details the journey to and in the role of a chief compliance officer. How does one come to sit in the CCO chair? What are some of the skills a CCO needs to successfully navigate the compliance waters in any company? What are some of the top challenges CCOs have faced, and how did they meet them? These questions and many others will be explored in this new podcast series. The Compliance Life is hosted by Tom Fox, and each month he'll present the story of one CCO through 4 episodes. The Compliance Life is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
We're going to have a quick word from our sponsor, and they'll be right back with Valerie Charles on The Compliance Life. Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox, back for episode 3 and this month's The Compliance Life. I continue my visit with Ellen Smith. Ellen, first of all, welcome back.
Thanks, Tom. This is fun. Enjoying it.
So, Ellen, in this episode, you're going to tell us about moving to Houston and moving to Weatherford, where you and several others created a true dream team of compliance professionals and a wide variety of compliance disciplines. So first of all, you're in Chicago. How did you get to Texas?
Yeah, you mentioned earlier that you heard a little twinge of Texan in my speech here, and I always wonder if people can tell where I'm from, because I started in Pennsylvania, moved to Chicago, worked in Wisconsin, y'all hate air, for a little bit, and then off to Texas. My husband has family in Texas, and we decided as my oldest daughter was entering high school that it was time for one of us to stay home. And so we both started looking for new jobs and decided, whoever gets the bigger job first gets to work, and the other one gets to take care of the kid that's going to high school and our younger one too. And I started, putting some feelers out. I had the opportunity to meet Linda Lexo and Rick Miller at Trade Compliance Recruiting. It was called something different at the time, but now that's their firm. And they connected me with one of my favorite people of all time, Natalia Shahada. Natalia was at Weatherford as the Director of Trade Compliance. She does a whole lot of new, bigger things these days, but at the time she was Director of Trade Compliance at Weatherford. She was fairly new to the role when I met her in November of 2009. Natalia at the time was, her background was in export controls and sanctions, and she was looking for a customs lawyer to sort of balance her out. We hit it off right away, and on the phone, I met her once before I made the move to Texas, and off we went. She hired me to be senior counsel at Weatherford in the compliance department. I was in, as we talked about last time, I was in the apparel industry. I didn't know anything about oil and gas or oil field services, other than, pull hydrocarbons out of the ground, and that's really the extent of it. So I felt like I had a huge learning curve, but what I knew was supply chain. And I really understood how supply chain worked at Jockey, and that same supply chain mentality with sourcing and procurement and logistics, is transferable to any industry. So I think I brought a lot of value to Weatherford from both the compliance perspective, the customs compliance perspective, and the supply chain perspective, and the operational sort of practical advice I think I'm kind of known for. So we decided as a family to move to Texas. We had family in the Houston area, so the move was easier. My girls, we talked to my girls at the time, I think they were 14 and 8. They said, yeah, let's give it a try. And as long as we have a swimming pool in the backyard, we'll go. And so that was their one request, and we made that happen. So here we are in Houston, Texas.
If you've worked in the energy industry literally over the past 20 years, you have either one, gone through a compliance investigation, two, gone through a compliance enforcement action, or three, gone through the settlement of a compliance enforcement action where you may or may not have had a monitor. I've been privileged to hit that trifecta. So I have some understanding of that. And what that did in the city of Houston, though, in my opinion, Ellen, is everyone had to take their game up and everyone had to learn. And we had to learn either under the eye of the Department of Justice, Securities and Exchange Commission, or other government agency. And we had to dot every I and cross every T. And then if you had an enforcement action against you, you may have a robust settlement agreement, which required additional compliance work. The end result, though, I think in the city of Houston, because of its unique place in the energy world, really has some of the top talent in compliance in a wide variety of compliance disciplines. And when you went to Weatherford, they were in a pretty tough pickle, frankly. They had lots of allegations that touched all the way from trade to corruption. And so I really wanted to ask you, one, what was it like to work with the talent level of people you worked with? And then two, you guys were under scrutiny and you guys were under pressure. And sort of how did you work through each one of those issues to the satisfaction of a wide variety of government regulators?
Not just government regulators, the satisfaction of the company too, because there was so much change going on. I will tell you, the only way that we got through it was because of the team that was put together. And at the time, Billy Jacobson was hired to be the chief compliance officer. Billy brought Natalia Shahada in as director of trade compliance, and Adrian Mabane in as the director of ethics and compliance. And Adrian and Natalia built these dream teams. And we call those years at Weatherford dog years. It felt like we were there for, when I look back at my time at Weatherford, and I was there from 2010, the beginning of 2010 to the end of 2013, I feel like I was at Weatherford for 20 years because of the amount of work that we did. But we were all gelling so well because we were all just dedicated to really building the best compliance program that anyone had ever seen. And we wanted to do it innovatively. We wanted, if that's a word, we wanted to be innovative. We wanted to really change the culture of the company. And we just really wanted to make sure that it was going to be spot on, just the best of the best. And the company was allowing us to do that. The company knew it was in trouble. They were obviously under investigation by the DOJ. As you said, there was corruption issues, there was sanctions issues, export control issues. There was an office that had been raided in the Houston area, so there was a lot going on. The company was scared. They wanted to do the right thing, I think across the board, Weatherford was kind of like Cowboy Central, and it really lived up to that sort of Texas mentality that goes with the word Texas. But what we found as we were going out and talking to people is they wanted to talk to people like us that knew what we were talking about, that were experts in this field of importing and exporting. So really, I'm going to focus on the trade side of this. When we went out and trained people, they're like, we want to know what to do. We don't know what is the right thing. Tell us what the right thing is. And for the first time, I think in probably, from at least the Department of Commerce and other trade side views, we operationalized trade compliance. And we built in the trade compliance requirements into what the company needed to do through a program that Natalia spearheaded, and that a woman by the name of Melissa Bohannon and I sort of helped Natalia really dig in and get this out to the company. At the time. I think, I don't know, there was like 70,000 or 60,000 employees. We were in 80 countries around the world. So we were constantly on the move. We were working 24/7. It was a lot of hard work, but it was a great team, and we all inspired each other and kept going. And then when when it going got really hard, Natalia brought us Crave cupcakes, and that just really helped.
So, Natalia, actually, I've had her on the Compliance Life, but I was wondering if you could maybe say a few words about Billy Jacobson. I know Billy, I won't say well, but he's one of the most gracious people I've ever come across. He seems to be on an even keel, and that as the ships are firing left and right at you, he seemed to be able to handle those. But could you give us maybe just a few words on Billy?
Another one of my favorite people, just so smart, so intelligent, and just compassionate as well. Like you said, just even keel. Never saw him ruffled, which I think is exactly what you want in a chief compliance officer, and especially one going through what we had to go through at Weatherford. But he knew how to build a team. He knew how to put out a vision. So think of this, this middle-aged lawyer coming in to customs compliance lawyer, moving to Texas from the apparel industry, hitting this group that's under so much pressure in the oil and gas space. And I knew from day one what our vision was. And it wasn't just, yeah, we want a best-in-class trade compliance program. It was, we want to dig into this company, and we want to make sure that everybody knows what the right thing to do. And there's a whole lot more into that vision. But Billy was really good, and Natalia and Adrian, all three of them, they were all really good at really uh, being able to verbalize that vision and make sure that everybody knew what we were going to do. But Billy was not a trade guy, but we would have trade issues come up, and I remember being in an office with him and Natalia, telling him about a customs issue that we had, and he just grasped it. He knew exactly, with whatever, probably nervous language I was throwing at him. He was able to, understand what the issue was, and just, help us move through it. Just an amazing guy.
So Weatherford did settle with the government. I thought it was an excellent settlement, no doubt due in large part, I think, because of the remediation efforts you and the team you were on put on during the pendency of the investigation. But after the settlement came out, you still had obligations, and you still had to, under the deferred prosecution agreement, I think, and you still had to, on an annual basis, report into the government. So there was still oversight. I was wondering if you could say a few words about really what happens after the settlement and you're under, whether it's a DPA, MPA, or other settlement agreement.
Well, I would love to, but I wasn't there. So I had left at
Okay.
that time. I had left Weatherford at 2013, right before they finally settled. So Weatherford did in fact have both a monitor on the anti-bribery, anti-corruption side, the FCPA side, and an auditor on the trade compliance side. That was a particular honor that they had, and they, I think, I will say this, that I think the program that we put in place really helped the team. I had left already, but the team continued to be able to meet the requirements of both the auditor and the monitor, because we really did work to operationalize, and that was the first time I really heard about operationalizing or making. And today it's effective trade compliance programs, or effective anti-bribery, anti-corruption programs, and that means really digging in and making sure people are doing it as part of their day-to-day job, and that's what we were able to create.
I can't think of a better way to end a podcast on compliance where you're talking about people putting compliance into their day-to-day jobs. But before we get to the end, did you have any favorite adopted sayings from your Weatherford tenure?
I tell everybody, I mean, Talia and I remain really, really good friends, and she's just taught me so much. She is my ultimate mentor, even though she's a lot younger than I am. But she's just such an amazing leader. But one of my favorite phrases from Natalia is no filter. And, she would start conversations, say, okay, no filter. And she'd just say what she needed to say. And that, seeing her being able to do that gave me the confidence to start doing that in my career as well. And, I think with a lot of the folks that I've worked with, either on my team or up managers and others, I just feel like, they know what you see is what you get with me. And I don't really have much of a poker face. You can't see it on this podcast, but you're going to read what's in my face, what I'm feeling, and so I adopted that from Natalia, and I use that phrase quite a bit. The other one, that's the no filter phrase. The other one is and there's a gesture that goes along with this, arm in arm. And when I'm talking to companies about putting a trade compliance program in place, I always tell them the program that I want to put in place for them, either whether it was in my in-house career or with clients, I don't ever want it to be sort of the ivory tower legal team, just putting out procedures and saying go forth and figure this out yourselves. It's going to be an arm-in-arm thing, that the legal team and the compliance team have to be arm in arm with the business to build that those compliance procedures into that day-to-day, right back to what you said, a great way to end, right, into that day-to-day work that needs to be done.
Well, unfortunately, we are near the end of our time for this episode, but I hope our listeners will join us for our final episode where we're going to talk about your move to Baker Hughes and then your move into the consulting world. I look forward to continuing this conversation.
Me too. Thanks, Tom.
Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox. Thank you again for listening to this episode of The Compliance Life. I hope you will join me again next week where I take up another episode in The Compliance Life. The Compliance Life is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network. If you would like to be featured on The Compliance Life, please give me an email at tfox@tfoxlaw.com. Also, if you like this series, please give us a rating on iTunes. Any review and rating would definitely help get the word out about the latest addition to the Compliance Podcast Network. Thanks again.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.